Frank Roy.
Can I first of all thank you, Mr Speaker, for allowing this important debate to take place. Not just important, but quite frankly unprecedented. And the question is asked, why should Parliament just allow another nation to determine the way that we do work on behalf of the people that we represent? And the answer to that is that we should not just allow that to happen without a proper debate and without making sure that our views are known. Mr Speaker, our committee agreed on the 22nd of July that it would hold an inquiry into the United Kingdom's relations with Hong Kong 30 years after the signing of the Joint Declaration in 1984. The inquiry's terms of reference were made and were wide-ranging. There were 4 pillars to that terms of reference. The committee planned to assess, first of all, the Foreign Office the FCO's monitoring of the Joint Declaration via its 6th monthly report. Secondly, the Government's relationship with the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Government. Thirdly, the business, trade and cultural links. Fourthly, the work of the British Council. The committee then received letters, Mr Speaker, from the Chinese Ambassador, the Chinese Parliament and the Hong Kong Government representation in London, urging us to cancel our inquiry. They argued that the inquiry would constitute interference in their internal affairs and provide a platform for, quote, unlawful propositions, unquote, on democratic reform. Indeed, the Ambassador warned that our inquiry would, and again quote, ultimately harm the interests of Britain. As our Chairman has so ably mentioned earlier, he informed the Chinese that we understood the sensitivities involved in our inquiry, but intended to continue with our inquiry and the visit that we planned to Hong Kong at the end of the month. The visit would have been an important opportunity to meet with a range of people in Hong Kong, not just politicians, not just people who are at the top of the tree, but we would have been meeting with business people, ordinary working people. Yeah, we would have probably been meeting students, protesters, because actually the students have a point of view and deserve to have that point of view heard. But we would have also been speaking to people in our hotel, to people that we meet in the street. So this was not going to be some high-level, closed-door discussion that we were hoping to have. But the Chinese government has all but accused us of providing support and platform for the protesters. But this is not, as I said, what the inquiry is about, and it's not what our visit would have been about. Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, that's where it's beginning to head towards. We've never mentioned Occupy Central. When we announced in July that we were having the debate, the announcement in Hong Kong was not made until the 31st of August about their elections, and therefore that was the start of the demonstrations. At every point along the way, we made clear that we wanted the inquiry to be balanced, objective and, most importantly, evidence-based. We wanted to hear the range of views and perspectives from all sides, including from the Chinese and Hong Kong authorities. And I repeat, including from the Chinese and the Hong Kong authorities. We also made clear that we have no intention of meddling in China's internal affairs. That is not why we are elected as parliamentarians. But we are focused on doing our job, which is to scrutinise our Foreign and Commonwealth Office, to scrutinise the work of the men and women of the FCO and the job that they do for the United Kingdom. Yes, of course.
Reasons why the Chinese authorities were unhappy about the visit of the Select Committee, and the Chinese authorities are saying that it may send the wrong signals to the figures of Occupy Central. Could he allay the fears of the Hong Kong authorities that by visiting and talking to people who are demonstrating, that doesn't necessarily indicate providing support for them?
exactly what we had hoped to do. What we had hoped to do was speak to as many people as possible and hear as many views as possible, and make sure that no matter what our inquiry had said at the end, that it was evidence-based. We weren't there as we weren't going as a cheerleader for Occupy Central. But let me tell the honourable gentleman, we weren't there just to ignore them either. Unfortunately, on Friday last week, we were told directly that the Chinese government would not allow us to enter the territory of Hong Kong. And as I said earlier, this is unprecedented. During this Parliament alone, our committee has visited countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia themselves have had internal problems, and we know that they wouldn't have been too happy to have a Foreign Affairs Select Committee doing an inquiry. But regardless of their opinion, we were allowed to visit, we were allowed to meet people, and we were allowed then to publish a report. And indeed, in previous parliaments, we've already heard the committee has visited China, including Tibet. And in no place ever have we ever been denied entry to any country. And in fact, no committee in this House has ever been denied entry. Yes, of course.
To the honourable gentleman in giving way, when he says that they've been denied entry into Hong Kong, to show the significance of what has taken place, has the committee considered going ahead with their planned proposed visit and being then turned away by the Chinese authorities, which would clearly show the international community the contempt with which a Foreign Affairs Select Committee is being treated? If that is the case, what hope does the demonstrators have of how they are treated by these same authorities?
I would say to all members there is an argument in fact that unfortunately what would happen, the reality of what would happen is that the committee would not be allowed to board their flight in London in the first place, because it's now against the law to actually go over to fly and to take a flight to somewhere where you know you're not going to be gained entry. So actually that wouldn't be able to that would not have happened anyway. But yes, of course.
Richard Graham.
Would he agree with me that it is absolutely inconceivable that were a Select Committee of the National People's Congress to wish to visit Britain, it is inconceivable that we would decline them a visa?
Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. Think of the uproar that we would have if we had suddenly to say to Chinese parliamentarians, you're not coming to this country, you're not coming into this building. You know, it doesn't take an awful, a huge brain to work out the uproar that would come from such a ban if it went the other way around. Yes, I'll give way to the Honourable Chairman.
But in fact, he may be interested to know that my understanding is there is a delegation from China here coming to Parliament this week.
Well, if they're here this week, then I'm sure I speak on behalf of the whole House and to say that they're most welcome to attend our Parliament and to have a full and frank discussion on any subject that they wish to raise with any politician. When we think about areas that we have visited that you would imagine there could have been a problem, several members, I can tell the House, recently turned from the Kurdistan region of Iraq in connection with our current inquiry into Kurdistan, which is, like Hong Kong, a sub-region within a sovereign country. Kurdistan is also very constitutionally sensitive for the Iraqi government, but the Iraqis were welcome and helpful. They understood that we didn't travel there to build on discord and to start a row. They understood that we were there to do a job on behalf of the people that we represent, and ultimately, hopefully, make more people understand the problems that are happening in Iraq and in Kurdistan. The Prime Minister's spokesperson said yesterday that the Prime Minister believed the decision was a mistaken one. He said it only served to, and I quote, amplify concerns about the situation in Hong Kong rather than diminish them. As our Chairman, Sir Elliott has said, that China's decision to deny us entry sends a worrying signal about its direction of travel regarding Hong Kong, but it's also a worrying signal in relation to the people of Taiwan and the government of Taipei, because, be under no illusion, the people in Taiwan and the government of Taipei will also be watching this and saying, is this where we go? Is this what could happen to us? And who could blame them if they did so? When the Minister sums up, I've got 5 particular questions that I would be grateful if you could answer. Number 1, how does the Government intend to respond to this unprecedented ban? 2, what meetings and conversations have Government Ministers sought or held with their counterparts in China in the last 5 days to discuss this issue? 3, has the FCO called in the Ambassador? 4, has United Kingdom Embassy in China formally protested to the Chinese Government about the ban? And if not, why not? And lastly, what does the Minister think that this ban says about China's approach to the United Kingdom and to the work of democratically elected parliamentarians? Mr Speaker, the decision to ban our committee is wrong and totally undemocratic. And, Mr Speaker, it must not go unchallenged.